Okay, we are recording live.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Guys, we have an unbelievable guest for you. Okay, he is a world traveler, a professional photographer, an author. Some of his books, Good Enough to Go Around, Half a Reason to Die, Inspire Change, which I got right here, Inspiring Change, sorry, and his new book that'll be coming out 2021 called Iwaso Village. He's also a documentary filmmaker. A few of his films that he's made, the Reagan Presidency series, The First Patient, Tolkien and Lewis, and a new one that'll be coming out 2021 on Amazon Prime, Landslide. Be sure to check that out. Also, check out a short film that came out earlier this year, Pizza and Piranha. You can find that at www.duncanentertainment.com. We will put that link in the description, no problem. But most of all, he's a super radical dude with a huge heart who has spent and dedicated his entire life to getting the real story out, no matter the cost. Please welcome our very good friend, Chip Duncan. How you doing, Chip?
Hey, Chip. That's great.
You guys.
Yeah, I freaking love you, dude.
So at the beginning of our show, what we do is we do something called Two Truths and a Lie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read 3 items, and 2 of them are going to be true, and 1 of them is going to be a lie. And then Devin and I are going to have to guess which one is the lie. Okay. So ready? What's that?
I hope I tricked you guys.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. We'll
Let's
see. Okay. So number 1, here we go. Oscar-winning actor Ben Kingsley was my business partner for several years. So that's insane as it is.
That is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
My
he did
father.
the movie Gandhi. I mean, he played Gandhi.
He was Gandhi.
Yeah.
He was always Gandhi. He was always Gandhi for me. Let's see. And then the second one is my father served as ambassador to Sweden for 4 years during the Reagan's time in office, President Reagan.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the third one is I've interviewed 6 US presidents. Holy smokes.
Oh, man.
So what are you thinking, Dev?
Oh, they're all so so close to so real. Like the last one, I'm going with definitely real.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, definitely.
You look like you're channeling psychic energy.
Yeah.
I know we are.
Process of elimination. The second one.
I say in the second one too. I'm saying the second one. The ambassador to Sweden.
Did
your
we
father.
get it?
Yeah, you don't think that's true?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
It's true, but I just don't know what to choose at this point.
No, I am of Swedish origin, but my father was not the ambassador.
So
so we got it. Because I know you've interviewed so many US presidents. I didn't know. I thought, is it the number 5, 6, 7? And then I knew your story about Ben Kingsley, which is another incredible.
I were business partners for quite a while, and then he had me as his best man in his 4th wedding.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
I never asked who the best men were in the first 3, but I was in number 4.
Oh my gosh. So I just want to let everybody know that Chip's a dear friend of our families. He is Mr. Adventure documentary filmmaker, photographer extraordinaire. And Devin has been so fortunate. He's been on a journey with Chip and then our good friend Jamie Alvarez deep into Peru for some ceremonies, high up in the mountains as well. And in 2018, our family were really fortunate to go with Chip to Kenya and Ethiopia. And we did an overland across Ethiopia to a place called Lalibela, where these rock churches are in the earth, in the ground. They're chiseled in. It's absolutely, it was incredible. So I just want to talk a little bit about that journey and that journey that we had with Chip. So thank you so much for putting it together for us. It was just absolutely incredible. And the first part of our journey, it took us into Nairobi, into Kenya. And we were able to stay with some of your friends, the Maasai, in the Maasai village for a while, which was one of the most incredible experiences of our lives. And then you're writing a book, and the book is coming out in 2021, and it's called Iwaso Village, which is it's probably a book that you've been writing for probably about 20 years in the kind of the study of the the Maasai and the people. Do you want to? I'd love to hear a little bit about this book and what the book's all about, there, Chip. If that's
Great. Well,
yeah, yeah,
first of all, outside of the truths and the lie, thanks for having me on your show. And you guys are like family for me. It's we spent a lot of time on the road, and
Mhm.
to give you a little background on Iwaso Village, I have
yeah.
to go all the way back to college. I was actually an English major in college, and I emphasized poetry. And of course, there's not much work for poets, but nonetheless, I maintained that skill set over all these years. And this will be my 5th published book, but it's the first one that includes poetry.
Uh huh.
And so it's interesting because the places I have visited the most in my professional life are Kenya, Peru, and Alaska.
Yeah.
And yet I haven't written books about any of those places. And so I thought, okay, I spent part of last year thinking why. And I decided, I think part of it is because I'm so close to them and so attached. So I started back in January of this year, I started a book called Iwaso Village about the Maasai, and that's their community where you
Hmm.
visited. And they live in an area called the Losaba Conservancy. And it fits a lot of what people imagine a safari might look like, elephants and lions and the savannah. But I wanted to get more into the culture. So I decided to write the book initially as poetry. And I put together a series of 18 poems and then flushed it out with the kind of prosaic history of Kenya. So
Mm.
colonialization, the various land grabs by the British, that sort of thing. And it actually has been very, very well received in the publishing community. And of course, as has happened to me before, they found out I had pictures. And so now it's being designed like a coffee table book. So it'll have poetry, prose, and photographs.
Ah.
And I just a couple days ago finished the audio version of the book,
Oh,
which
you
is
did. Oh, you did.
yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. So that'll
Fantastic.
be out sooner. And then I decided, well, I'm going to make it a trilogy. So book number 2 that includes poetry will be about Peru, and book number 3, which will come out in 2025, is featuring Afghanistan and the work I've done in central Afghanistan. So it's a different way of telling these stories, but they're all featuring indigenous populations. So
Right. Right.
the Peru book, for example, will feature the Andean cultures of the Quechua people, which you're familiar with, and some of
Yes. Yes.
yours may be familiar with. So,
It's amazing. I don't know. Devin and I and our family have been so fortunate to travel so much and meet so many people around the world. And it's just a blessing. And I honestly believe when we were with you guys in Kenya and in the Uwaso village, uh, they were probably the most happy people that we've ever come across. I mean, a lot of people are happy, but these guys, the people, it was incredible, and the way they welcomed us in, and especially they welcomed Devin in. It was like, that was a whole different, Paul the chief, and it was quite something. But they were just happy all the time, and always, you'd be in your hut, and you'd be, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, you hear giggling outside, giggling and laughing, and
yeah.
what is going on? They were just they were the warriors outside, and they were just, starting their day, and you know.
Well, and I've been there more than a dozen times, and they've all become close friends, and
Mhm.
I feel the same way. These are some of the happiest people I've ever met, and I suppose they have things that might make Westerners unhappy. Certainly, they live a very sparse life when it comes to material objects. Their life expectancy is relatively low compared to the West, and
Yeah.
infant mortality rates are high. I mean, they have their challenges, but in terms of spirit and personality,
Mhm.
I just
Yeah.
love them. And 2 of the Maasai that you met,
Yeah.
you'll remember Paul Lebaneo.
Yes, of course. Of course. Yeah.
And I think you guys met Bonaventure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And both of them were my go-to when I was writing the book. We would email 2-3 times a week. And the book covers things that we never touched on during your trip, but things like their
Mhm.
death rituals,
Right.
Mm.
What happens when someone dies? What do they
Yeah.
do?
Right.
And of course, as you'll recall from being there, there's a strong Christian influence from the Catholics that tried to proselytize in that area. But for the most part, these guys have gone back to, as much as they can, back to their indigenous cultural and spiritual beliefs. So Paul, for example, his Maasai name is Maio.
Yes.
And so in the book, I call him Maio, and
Mm-hmm.
Bonaventure's Maasai name is Kandari.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so one of the poems, for example, is about visiting Kandari in his little boma with his family enclosure, and then going out and getting honey from the honey pots in the trees.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And you, of course, Devin, you were there. You did the dance and the jump.
Yeah. Oh,
What was that
I
like?
actually have a few pictures. I'll bring up a couple pictures in a minute. Here. I have a few. Devin doesn't know about any of this, and neither does Chip. So I do have a few pictures of us. Actually, I could put them up now, and then we could talk. We could. I'm going to share a screen for a second here.
Well, we were all in there. I think Chip, you're in there too for a bit, right?
Yeah, I might have been in there.
The
Oh yeah,
jumping
Chip definitely was.
definitely was in there.
I think I was bearded at the time. Yeah.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Comes and goes.
Chip was definitely.
Oh, there's
in there.
the bearded Chip. Look at
So
that.
could you guys see? Yeah, it's like
Beautiful.
Yeah. So again, it's like on some cover of the most handsome man in the world photograph. I don't know. That's
there
just
you go.
Look at this.
And this photo is actually from the Kibera community, the Kibera slum in Nairobi.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because we flew out over that on the way to the village, I guess. Yeah, yeah. It goes for miles and miles and miles.
It's an unbelievable place as well. All
so
right.
here's a you can. I lost you guys out here. I'm just gonna go back.
Oh, there we go.
Is this the? Well, hang on. Okay, so this was a school. We visited a school, and it was an incredible. Which was the name of it? Iwaso Primary in the Iwaso area, right?
Yep.
Yeah, with the kids. And that's Devin's sister there, Kina, showing a photograph to the kids in the bottom corner there. And I'll move you guys out of the way. Yeah, and then to our listeners, Devin can explain a little bit because this is on YouTube, our YouTube channel, but also it's audio on Spotify and whatnot.
So a little bit about the picture that's in the back here is we went to an orphanage, so we're just surrounded by lots of kids.
Actually, this is the school. This is the school. The orphanage, I think the orphanage was later, but
right, yeah, it was later. You're right. Oh yeah, this is the school. Oh, sorry, I think the picture on the right is from the orphanage. So the picture on the left, which some of you probably can't see, is me and my brother with some of the kids from the school, and they're so stoked to see us, and they're just like, where did you guys come from? And then in the picture on the right hand side, we have Kina showing pictures that she's taking of the kids, and they just thought it was like the most wonderful thing to be like, what the heck? There's like, now I'm on the little screen here, and they were just so excited, and they're unbelievably little cuties. So
they were the cutest kids in the world. Yeah. So Chip took us here, which was incredible, and then we were in the Iwaso village with some of the warriors and one. And Chip, you could probably explain what these guys were doing here.
Well, it's interesting. You see in the image, you'll see a group of Maasai warriors, and Devin and Dylan are both jumping with them, and they jump vertically from a standing position. It's actually very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. And early on in my early exploration and time with the Maasai, I thought it was a something spiritual, and I didn't understand it. And then when I asked about it, I found out that it was actually a way to impress girls. So the higher you can jump, the more masculine, the more athletic, and so it's actually a courtship ritual.
Fantastic! That's what
it's always the way it is. We're trying to impress the girls, right? So
there you go.
And then so that was an incredible experience. I mean, the Maasai were wonderful, and I can't wait to get a copy of your book. And so after that, we then went from Nairobi to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and we did an overland trip from Mekelle to Lalibela, which I'll show a little bit left. But we had Chip had arranged some vans, and we did a bit of a cross country trip. Hey, Chip.
Yeah, and Mekelle, as you know, is currently involved in some significant conflict in northern Ethiopia, the Tigray province. But
Yeah.
on our journey, and I've been there now many times, and it's generally speaking a very safe area. But Mekele was where we landed, started in Addis Ababa, then flew up to Mekele, and then drove overland to the rock churches of Lalibela. And it's an extraordinary drive, takes us 2 days, and it's an opportunity to really get out and meet people and pull off to the side of the road and make new friends. And it's a trip that is really not on anybody's radar. When we first initiated it, it was all dirt roads at the time. Now they're paved, but when we first started, it wasn't a trip that anybody was doing anywhere. So for us, it was incredibly unique. And now, of course, we're not sure during our next visit, which we hope is in September of 21,
Hmm.
pending COVID. But if we're able to get back, we may not be able to fly to Mekele. We don't know. So the Rock Churches area is still without conflict, and so we can always return there. But it may be a while before we get back to Mekele. We'll have to wait and see.
Wow. It was amazing because all I remember, I knew nothing about Ethiopia. It was one of those countries I'd flown over a lot of times, but I never stopped at.
Hmm.
And the only thing that I remember from Ethiopia was back 1994, the massive famine that happened there, and then Bob Geldof and we are all that and U.S. Aid for Africa. And I just thought of Ethiopia as just being a dust bowl. And when we arrived there, it was completely opposite. It was beautiful, and our overland trek from Mekele to Lalibela was extreme, like mountainous, and fields and farms, and the people would run out to come and greet us. It was completely opposite to what I had imagined.
Right.
And then you took us to the Coram Plateau. So this is the spot in 1994, and this is Chip here holding up a little handwritten
Hmm.
message for us all. So you can probably speak a little bit about this, Chip. It was absolutely shocking what happened here in
Well,
1994.
sure. I mean, let me begin by saying that my business partner in Nairobi is a man named Salim Amin, who traveled
Hmm.
with us in Ethiopia. And Salim's father gained a great deal of fame for his work in northern Ethiopia, photographing the uh, really horrible famine that happened there in 84, 85. And the thing about famine that's interesting, a lot of people don't quite understand, is that you can have a drought, and a drought can be debilitating and create all kinds of problems, but
Hmm.
famine is almost always man-made. And in this case, there were two warring factions in this region that were using food as a weapon. And so, there were literally more than 1 million people who died from the famine, which was in some ways, related to the conflict. And the photos here that show you and your wife and yours truly holding the piece of paper, this was taken on the Koram Plateau, which is where Salim Amin's father, Mohammed Amin, photographed the images that launched the song "We Are the World," and also launched Live Aid, which
Yeah.
was to this date probably the biggest, greatest concert in history.
Yeah.
And so it was on this plateau where more than 100,000 people died related to that famine. And it was Mohammed Amin's images that really brought the famine to public light around the world, and created the greatest moments of generosity the world has ever seen. So Mohammed Amin is actually credited with saving more than 1 million lives
Yeah,
through.
his story alone is incredible. I know, talking to Salim, his son, Salim mentioned that his father, they knew there was something going on. He got himself on, I think, on like a military transport or something, and he wasn't allowed to go in the area, but he got into the area. He got photographs. He snuck back. If he was caught, he would have been, wouldn't have been good. And he got back out, and I think he got those. Didn't he get those photos to NBC or something in the United States, or one of
They
the film
originally he got them originally to the BBC,
to the
and
BBC?
Mike Woolridge and Mike Burke from the BBC launched the story on BBC TV and radio initially, and then Tom Brokaw from NBC picked it up in the U.S.
Wow. And
And
then And then
the
Bob
world,
Geldof and Michael Jackson and whatnot, they all,
yeah,
yeah,
Lionel Richie,
Lionel Richie. Yeah.
Terry Belafonte, they all rallied and came together to create the song "We Are the World." And to this day, it's now 36 years ago that's the song
Wow.
launched
Yeah.
in it'll be 36 years in January.
That's just a,
It's an amazing story.
it is. It all, because Muhammad Amin was able to get in and share that story. And if he wasn't able to do that, these people would probably have died in silence, and who knows if anybody would have ever known what was really going on there. I don't know. I don't know. Um,
It's unlikely that people would have. So
oh,
yeah, but today the Corn
sorry.
Plateau is a wildly different place, as you can see.
Oh,
So this I can't stop. It's running. It's a video of Devin and you, Chip, getting a bunch. Now, the thing that really struck me from this whole plateau was these kids. They came running down and they greeted us. And then I thought, you know what? These kids are probably the grandchildren of any of those survivors. Whoever survived, these are probably the grandkids.
They are.
And they
Sure
were running and they were playing with us. And you guys were able to, you guys got them. I got to show this again. You guys got them so riled up.
Yeah, we
That,
definitely did. Well, I mean, I don't think that was me. I think that was Devin.
so you guys were doing a haka, a rugby haka.
something like that.
Well, they had a great time. They really did, playing with Devin in particular.
They were
Oh,
they were
man.
chasing you guys, and you guys were
That's
playing
so
soccer
funny.
with you. And it was just striking that, this happy, incredible place, and what had happened here in 1984 was absolutely apocalyptic. And this is a photograph. There's Salim there. So this is Salim. This is Mohammed Amin's son with Chip and some of the local kids. Hey,
Yeah, it's a beautiful. I mean, it's still to this day so extraordinary to visit there. And we've always thought, and you showed it in an earlier photo, we've always felt like there should be a memorial on this plateau,
yes, yeah,
something to commemorate what happened here, because we have those in other parts of the world, in Rwanda, in Cambodia, and certainly in Eastern Europe where the Holocaust took place. So it would be wonderful to have a memorial on this site.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Oh, here's
Oh, I
another
think
thing.
some of this as well.
I think Chip with. They didn't want us to go. The Chip.
Where, I mean, this is amazing. Like, again, Devin, you're so entertaining with the kid.
I don't know. You guys are getting them just
Some
riled
weird
up.
looking dude running around. They're like, what's going on?
And then I don't know if this was after or before, but Chip, you've also been working with some local communities and schools and raising some funds to help out some local Ethiopian schools, right? And then you took us to one where we visited
Yeah.
the students.
Yeah,
and the
this
teachers.
particular classroom is near Mekele, and we're uncertain what's happening to it at the moment. But we were
Yeah.
able to raise some funds and build a water filtration system and a well there. So there's now water in the schools where before you had to go off site to get water. So it seems fairly simple to us, but in this particular part of Ethiopia, just being able to have water in the classroom was a big deal.
Yeah. And then we made it to the Rock Churches, and which is in Lalibela, and it's a tiny little town, but I think it's once a year. I don't know, 100,000 people show up to take part in the Epiphany, right? Or what is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
your trip happened during the Epiphany, and the town itself is fewer than 50,000 residents.
Mhm.
I'm in touch with families there literally within the last week who are struggling because the only way this community can really survive and thrive is through tourism. And of course, since COVID started, there is nobody visiting. Typically over the last 40, 50 years, they've had tourists mostly from Germany, from Australia. They're all great travelers. And then more recently, Canada and the US.
Mhm.
And it's really a thriving community now because of the Rock churches, which are part of the Coptic Christian tradition. going
Yes.
way back. But when we were there for the Epiphany. They also get a large group of pilgrims for Christmas and Easter. I've been there for all three of those holidays, religious holidays, to photograph and document the goings on. And it's a very welcoming place, a very spiritual place, very in my case, I'd say it's also a very mystical place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of history there, and the lifestyle has changed somewhat over the centuries, of course, but there's still many things that they hold on to and preserve, ancient artifacts and murals and drawings, and a lot of the rituals associated with their faith practices have not changed in hundreds of years. And so
Yeah.
it's an extraordinary place to go visit.
It really was. And there's a funny little story, a little segue is that Devin's brother Dylan was going to the University of Victoria, and he had a job, he had a side job, and he one of his mates from there that he was working with. Dylan said, "Oh, I'm going to Ethiopia," and he goes, "You're going to Ethiopia?" And he said, "Yes, I'm going to Ethiopia." He says, "Oh, I'm from Ethiopia." And he's like, "Okay." He says, "I'm from this place called Lalibela." And Dylan's like, "I think I'm going there." And he said, "Here's my brother's phone number. Call him when you get." So we arrive in this village, and this epiphany's going on, and there's hundreds of thousands of people coming to celebrate. And next thing you know, this guy shows up, and it's Dylan's friend's brother that lives in this tiny village. And he invited us for coffee at his little tiny house. We sat outside in the dirt on a little tree stump, and we did coffee ceremony, because it's a big, in Ethiopia, it's more of a ceremony than just having a cup of coffee. And it was the most incredible
Isn't that great?
experience, from Victoria on Vancouver Island to Lalibela in Ethiopia. We met with his
And the odds of that are so, I mean, it's minuscule. Although in your case with your family, you guys are world travelers, so you probably have a lot of kismet experiences. But that's pretty out there.
That was pretty out there.
That's
That was pretty out there. It
Yeah.
was, yeah. It was like saying, I have a brother that works at, Ice Station Zebra at the South Pole. Oh, okay, well, go
Oh,
meet
we
him.
all, yeah.
It's like great. Uh, so this is a shot of the Epiphany and some of the people. It was just, I think this is 5 o'clock in the morning. We went to with Chip to witness this. Yeah, yeah, it was quite
And
something.
there's not much that can get me up at 5 a.m., but this is the sort of thing
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will rise early for.
Yeah, or 4:30 or 5, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of photographs here of Chip doing what he does. Getting some unbelievable. His books are stunning. His work is stunning. Everything and where he's been able to get into. He has stories of being in Kabul in Afghanistan to, I mean, you name it. Absolutely incredible. And this photo down here in the right corner, isn't that?
Mhm. Yeah, that's Abdul Ramadan. He's
That's right.
a friend who lives in Nairobi. He actually lives in the Kibera slum, which is where we're standing for this picture. And Abdul is the subject of a film we did in 2017
That's right.
called The Sound Man.
That's right.
And so he has the distinction really of being one of the great sound engineers on the continent. He's continued to live in the slum his entire adult life, but it's allowed him to use his the means that he has had to send his kids to college. All four of his kids have gone on to college.
Wow.
And he's one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. He's also extremely quiet.
Yes, I remember we met him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was actually during I was on a shoot in northern Ethiopia in 2013
Mm-hmm.
for the group 1.org, and Abdul was the sound engineer on the trip, and that's how I got to know him. He would be the first person awake in the morning. I would usually stumble in and we'd have coffee, and I started to hear his stories. But he's an eyewitness to some of the most extraordinary history of East Africa. Really, truly a gifted human.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And then this was, yeah. So this is Chip's book. This is one of Chip's book. So what we did is we did a little prank on Chip at the airport I think in Addis, and we were flying out, and then we had a copy of his book, and we gave it to everybody. And Chip was talking to one of our guides in the background, Terry, and we had everybody get his book and read it, and then have Chip in the background. So we probably got about 15 photographs of the same thing, and Chip had no idea what the heck was going on.
I remember that. It was really funny, really funny. And that's the book from 2017, I think. It's called Half a Reason to Die.
Half a Reason to Die. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's the only one that doesn't have photos in it.
Right. Right. That's true.
It's
That's
all
true.
short stories. So
That's right. It's excellent. So I'm going to go back to here. There we go. So there's so much, so much to talk about, and you've been involved in so many things. We need to have you on so many different shows. And something that's really, really exciting. I've seen the trailer for it that's coming out. It's a current project that you're working on. It's called Magnificent Madness. Can you share a little bit of light on this project? Because I remember you and I were in a hotel in Nairobi, and we were on treadmills we went down because we had a long flight and we wanted to stretch our legs. We were on treadmills. And we're on treadmills in this gym,
wow.
and you're going, "Oh, I got this story, Nigel." It's just, and I don't know. I was on this treadmill for like an hour and a half with you. I was dying because the story was so engaging. I was like, "You're kidding? You're gonna make like a film about this? How's it?" And I was like sweating and dripping, and Chip's going on, and he was like, "Look, totally fine." And I'm like, and he just kept telling me this incredible story about this film he was going to make. So now it's actually come to fruition, and it's real. So it's really exciting that this is coming out.
Yeah, it's very real. It's called Magnificent Madness.
Yeah.
And the website is magnificentmadness.com. People can go there. And right now, the site is still pretty basic, but over the next few months, it'll fill up with content because we're in the final editing stages of what has become a 4-part series.
Right.
And I think when we were talking, I wasn't sure yet if it would be a feature documentary or a series.
Yeah.
And then when we started production, we thought, okay, this is going to be 3 episodes. Now it's 4.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the extraordinary tale of 3 amazing people in the auto industry in Italy that come together to build what at the time was considered the world's greatest Grand Prix race car.
Yeah.
But in order to see how they came together for the race car, you have to unfold their lives. And so the first episode is all about Tazio Nuvolari, considered the greatest driver in race history, Italian. The second and third episodes bring in Ferdinand Porsche, and the story's main character is someone most people have never heard of, a gentleman named Piero Duzio.
Yeah.
So Duzio was living in Turin, an industrialist, made a lot of money during the war, brought Porsche in after the war, brought Nuvolari in. They had raced against each other earlier, brought him in after the war, and they proceed to try to build the world's greatest Grand Prix car. And then Duzio, who's our main character, I just love this guy. I love everything about him. He's an extraordinary entrepreneur, kind of like you in that way. He's just a great entrepreneur. And then toward the reason we added the 4th hour is that later in his life, he moved to Argentina and reinvented himself.
Oh, wow.
And so the entire documentary series, Magnificent Madness, all takes place in Italy and Argentina. And it's interesting because up until very recently, there were no, even though I live in the US, there were no people from the United States in this series. And we just added one a few months ago, a guy from Oregon who he was such an expert on the car, the Cisitalia 204 and the Cisitalia 360 are the cars. And he was such an expert, we added him at the last minute. So now we have a gringo in the film. But
and wasn't there a story? I don't know if you can talk about it or not yet because it hasn't come out. But you connected the 2 families that had never even either heard of each other or whatnot, and they'd been separated for decades.
Yeah. So our main character, Piero Duzio, he's the kingpin. He's the focal point. So he brings the world's greatest race car driver and the world's greatest car designer together. But he personally had an amazing story, and he had 4 wives, and he fathered children on 2 different continents. And so we interviewed a number of the people who were his offspring or grandchildren in Italy, but we also interviewed people in Argentina, including his children from his 4th wife and children from his third wife, and his fourth wife is still alive as we're speaking. So she's in the film. So they've all participated, but they really didn't know each other. And so doing research, I went and visited families in both countries and then put them all together with me on a WhatsApp. So when there's a big news event or something now, we just all WhatsApp each other as a group.
Wow.
And it is truly the most amazing story, and we'll be done. At the latest, we'll be done by like April of 2021. But there's my hope is that it'll be on the air in the sometime or late summer or early in the fall here in the northern hemisphere of 2021.
Wow. So we're gonna have to circle back when that comes out and get you back on, and you can tell us all about it, and we can
Sure.
tell everybody again. That's amazing.
It's a lot of fun. It's just not like anything we've ever done. And it has history in it, and it's juicy history. I mean, most people don't realize that Porsche was a Nazi.
Yeah.
And he worked for Hitler, and he was part of the war machine in Germany. And so when in our story, one of the things that unfolds is Porsche's journey that led to internment. He was brought into the post-war camps for war criminals, and it's an amazing story. So
wow.
So we explain why he wound up in prison. We also explain how he got out. Yeah, it's gripping stuff. So I'm really happy with this series.
Wow, that's great. Oh my God. Yeah, so we can't wait. I've seen the trailer, and people can check out the trailer. We'll post all that information on the podcast here so people can find that. But there's just so much material to talk about, but I think we're gonna have to cut it off now because we're kind of cutting in on some time.
Well, I will say, for me, it's always a great pleasure to be with both of you. And maybe one of these times when we talk, we'll share some stories from Peru that involve some late night clubs and dancing, and maybe a little bit of adult beverage.
A little bit.
Yeah, you guys, you characters. Yeah. When I was in Peru, we were in Peru. I was in there about 2 years ago with Jamie Alvarez, our COVID friend, and then our other son Dylan, and Reiko, my wife. And we were in Cusco, and I like to drink my beer, but I'd have a hard time. I'd drink one, but then it would be like, because you're so high, the altitude would get to me. I'd be like, oh, I'd get a bit of a headache. So you guys are hardcore, I tell you. Be able to.
Well, maybe I might fit in that category, but I know Devin and I did have a great experience there. We went to some extraordinary rituals and worked with Jamie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
And we're gonna have Jamie on in a couple of weeks, and we have Star, his partner, his wife, his partner, coming up as well, which is really cool. So, but for right now, so your book, your Owasso Village book coming out. I think that, I don't think it's ever been done. A book like this on the Maasai people. So that's definitely something I can't wait to come out. And all the work that you've done, and with Salim Amin in Ethiopia, and to share the story of his father and what happened in 1984. And also you were having another bit of a project you're talking about, that making of the song "We Are the World," that I think is on the radar screen for you as well. So many things, and so many so many things that you've done to help people and share their stories around the world is just daunting. So thank you so much for everything you've done and what you continue to do, Chip. You just inspire everyone. It's everyone that comes in contact with you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it so much, and I hope that we're in touch again soon, and that people stay safe during COVID to the best they can, and hopefully we'll all be back traveling really, really soon.
Yeah. Any other things you want to throw in there, Chip, before we round it all up here?
Well, there is one more little thing. On the website, duncanentertainment.com, we launched a new film just a couple months ago called Pizza and Prana.
Yes,
and
that's right.
It's a short. We don't do a lot of short films, but it's a 12-minute film called Pizza and Prana, featuring the journey of an ALS patient which, it's fascinating because people think, oh, ALS, what a downer, blah, blah, blah. And then they get to the film and their mind is blown by the journey of this man named Dr. Scott Stieber. And it's upbeat, it's positive, it's
Wow.
a super fun journey. And he and Tina Langdock, who he's working with as a yoga therapist, they are reinventing what is possible for people with disabilities. So it's
Wow. Wow.
a film worth watching.
Wow. Okay, we'll put that up here as well. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Any final words there, Devin? I mean, I know
No,
there's
pretty
lots. There's
much.
lots. Just so we could talk
There's
for hours
tons.
with
I
Chip.
mean,
It's-
we go on forever about stories and whatnot, but I think, yeah, we'll wrap it up for the podcast today. Thank you all guys for so much for checking in. Thank you for listening. All of the information on Chip will be in the description. Check out his new film that just came out, Pizza and Piranha, like he just mentioned, www.duncanentertainment.com. Again, that link will be in the description. But most of all, thank you so much, Chip, for coming on here today. It's just so good to see you in this, this time. And I always love talking to you. And you're such a positive guy, such great energy. And thank you for getting those stories out. It's really, it really means a lot to a lot of people and a lot of families. And I think it changes a lot of hearts. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much, Chip.
All right. Ciao.
Ciao.